The Fireplace That Remembered Stories. In the main room of a narrow house, close to the village road, there stood a stone fireplace. It was wide and low, built long before anyone remembered the name of the mason who laid the stones. Its mantle was worn smooth by years of hands resting there, and its hearth bore the marks of countless fires. The fireplace had been lit for generations. It had warmed children who no longer lived in the house. It had dried coats that would never be worn again. It had listened. When the fire burned, people talked. They talked while feeding logs into the flames. They talked while waiting for kettles to boil. They talked when the room grew quiet and the fire filled the space between words. The fireplace remembered everything it heard. It remembered jokes told too often and confessions told only once. It remembered arguments that burned hot and fast, and apologies that smouldered quietly. It remembered stories. At first, stories were told aloud. Old ones, handed down carefully. New ones, half-formed and clumsy. Tales of journeys, mistakes, and things that nearly happened. The fire listened and crackled in response. It was a good arrangement. But time passed, as it always does. The house changed hands. New people came. Furniture shifted. The fireplace stayed. The fire still burned, but people talked less. They sat close to the warmth, but their eyes were elsewhere. The room filled with a different kind of quiet. The fireplace listened anyway. One winter evening, a child sat on the rug before the hearth. The fire was low, glowing rather than burning. The child poked at the embers with a stick and asked a question. What did this house used to be like? The adults paused. They looked at one another, surprised. Then one of them smiled and began to speak. That night, a story was told. It was not long. It wandered a little. It ended without a lesson. The fire burned brighter. The fireplace remembered. After that, stories returned. Not all at once, and not loudly. Sometimes someone would recall a name. Sometimes a place. Sometimes a detail that had almost been forgotten. The fireplace held them carefully, like embers tucked beneath the ash. Years later, the house stood empty. The fireplace was cold. Dust settled on the hearth. The road outside grew quieter. The fireplace waited. It had learned patience long ago. One spring morning, footsteps returned. A family moved in. Boxes were stacked. Windows were opened. The fireplace was examined thoughtfully. "It needs cleaning," someone said. They swept out the ash, scrubbed the stone, and stacked fresh wood nearby. That evening, the fire was lit again. The flames caught slowly. As they did, the room filled with warmth and with something else. The family talked. At first, they spoke of practical things, but as the fire settled, the conversation softened. Someone asked about the house. Someone else answered. A story began. The fireplace listened. It recognized some parts, though the names were different. The shape of the story was familiar. It felt something like satisfaction. As the years went on, the fireplace became known as a place to sit. Not because it was warm, though it was, but because people found themselves talking there. They brought worries. They brought memories. They brought half-finished thoughts and let them rest in the firelight. The fireplace never interrupted. It never judged. It simply remembered. One night, long after the house had gone quiet, the fire burned low. The last ember glowed. The fireplace held its stories close, ready for the next voice, the next winter, the next beginning. Because stories, it had learned, did not belong to the people who told them. They belonged to the places that listened.